Welcome to Megabucks Radio. Conversations with successful entrepreneurs, sharing their tips and strategies for success. Real world ideas that can put megabucks in your bank account. Here's your host, Nina Hershberger.
Well, hello. Today is 4th of July, which, you know, my special guest that I got on today, when we kind of laughed at it when we both realized we were scheduling on the 4th of July. But he and I are true entrepreneurs, have known each other for years and years. I have a tremendous amount of respect. And so we said, we're going to go with it. So today I want to welcome to the show Mitch Carson. Mitch, it is so much a pleasure to have you on today's show.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Nina, and to celebrate our nation's independence on this day. But as you mentioned, as a fellow entrepreneur, we work no matter what.
We can't shut our brains off. That's what I always say. So I want to give a little bit of background for Mitch. I mean, we could go on and on and on, but how many years did you spend over in Asia, did you say, Mitch?
13
years. Yeah. And so he's mentored some of the best of the best. So, you know, you think CEOs, speakers, authors, consultants, and he's hung around some pretty international, notable kind of clients like Mark Victor Hansen and Tony Robbins, and, you know, it could go on and on. Dan Kennedy world is where Mitch and I actually met. But the thing that I think is so amazing about Mitch, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is how he can take any business owner and brand them almost instantly within just a couple of days by being interviewed on network TV, and he guarantees that he can do that. So welcome, Mitch, to today's show. I'm excited to get started. So let's go back in time. I always like to do this with my guests. I don't, you know, and we could jump right into the subject, but tell me, how in the world did you become an entrepreneur? What's your background? Where did you get started?
Entrepreneurship was spawned originally before I went to corporate America. So I started out working as a door-to-door salesman of promotional products when I was going to college at the University of Southern California. That was my first work for myself job. I used to sell T-shirts and cups that were plastic cups for the fraternities and sororities. And then I ended up getting so busy doing that. It was a part-time job going sorority house, fraternity house, door to door, saying, hey, I want to make your shirts for your upcoming event. Oh, sure, dude. And then I would give them a price, show them the shirt, and come back with Hanes beefy tees that were to their order. And it was a cash-based business, and it was part-time. And before I knew it, within 2 years, I had $1 million business. And this was all during my part-time work in college. And then I had 7 employees because I couldn't handle the work. And then it spilled over into the record industry because I grew up in LA, specifically in the Hollywood area. So we were handling clients like Capitol Records, Virgin Records, CBS, and then it just grew and grew. And then more and more corporate clients, but it all started out of college going and knocking on doors.
Well, you know, that's interesting because, you know, that most of us did that door-to-door kind of thing. I don't think young entrepreneurs get that experience anymore, do they?
No, they do email to email or text to text. No, you had to get the rejection right to your face instantly. There was either gratification or rejection. So it was G or R. You found out exactly where you stood. Hey, Peggy, want to dance? No, or yes. Let's go. You knew immediately on the dance floor of life. And that was door-to-door sales.
And you probably knew how to, I mean, you refined it very quickly, the kind of things that you could say. My son actually was out of college, was a ballroom dance instructor for 4 years. You know, and in seconds, you have to connect with somebody. And so that's what you did on a door-to-door kind of thing. In fact, I think when I first met you, I mean, I thought of you as being the lumpy mail kind of guy. I mean, you did a lot of direct mail, and you had things that people would put into the envelopes to catch attention when the mail came through.
Yes, I wrote a book called The Silent Salesman on that topic of dimensional mail, and that was a great period of my life. I owned a trade show display company as well as a promotional products agency, and then we evolved into a traditional ad agency where we handled all that. And probably you might know, or maybe you didn't know, I used to mail Dan's newsletter for him. So I had his list of people that I would mail, and then I created the bobblehead doll for him some years ago. And I loved the direct mail industry. And then in 2006, I sold it to Halo Branded Solutions, and then moved on to speaking internationally. And I grew my brand. I went in a different direction. It was a great background.
It's funny. I did not know that story about the bobblehead. If this were a video podcast, I could show you that Dan's bobblehead sitting on that bowl is right here on my desk. Perfect
Mine is still
condition.
Here.
Well, that's great. I didn't know that. So you sold your company in 2006 and you headed to Asia. So kind of what we're going to be talking about today is that branding. Is there, how do you, I think you probably, and I should ask you what's your definition of the branding and why is that important?
Well, branding, there's so many definitions. You could go to Kotler, who wrote the textbook on marketing. He might have that. That's the preeminent textbook in the curriculum of colleges around the U.S., probably or possibly internationally. But what is your brand, Nina? It's what people say about you or think about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah, good point.
It's what do you represent to the world, and what is your perceived value based on your packaging, how you speak, what they say about you, how they gossip about you will then put you and file you in the right compartment, or in the compartment that they define you as belonging to. That's the, let's just say, non-educated response. I'm sure there's but it's a brand. It involves the 4 P's of marketing. It's, product, price, placement. But no, it's how they see you when you're not in the room, or what they say about you.
Well, so kind of what that leads to is the fact that you ought to be thinking about that. So let's give an example. Let's say it's an orthopedic surgeon, and he or she went to school, graduated, hopefully more towards the top of their class instead of the bottom of the class, and is now in practice. Well, if somebody's going to go to that orthopedic surgeon, there's, a whole bunch around there that they could choose from. Why should they choose that particular one? Which leads back to what you're saying, the branding. Why would they choose them? What do they know about them? What do they feel about them? What is being said? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah. Let's take these 2 orthopedic surgeons, Dr. Bob and Dr. Bill, just to make it. Dr. Bob went to the same institution. They both went to Harvard Medical School. They're both well branded with their medical diplomas. They both were best friends. They were roommates in undergraduate, grad school, and they even shared a condo together when they went through their residency. And they're in the same town, but there's a little bit of competitiveness that exists between Dr. Bob and Dr. Bill. And Dr. Bob is a marketer. Dr. Bill is a straight practitioner. Who do you think makes more money? The one that took the time to write press releases. He also wrote a book on the friendly way to correct your body through orthopedic surgery. He also becomes the guest medical expert on the local radio show and TV program. He writes a monthly column in the throwaway newspaper or on a national newspaper. Who do you think garners better pay? Who makes more money? Who charges more for the same procedure? Now, their talents behind the knife are about equal. They're both excellent surgeons. They were trained, after all, branding at Harvard, the #1 college in the world as perception, because it's branded as such. So then the next step Bill took the opportunity to get on TV. He took the opportunity to market himself and elevate his perceived value beyond just Harvard. He's a Harvard-educated surgeon who also is the expert in the eyes. Now, why is that important? At the country club, Mrs. Smith, who needs her knee replaced when she's 6 years old, has a choice. She met these fine gentlemen over Sunday brunch and mimosas. And then she finds out, oh, you're the one that I read about in the local newspaper. I saw you on TV last week. Aren't you the one, Dr. Bill, who talked about fast recovery with knee replacement? Now, Dr. Bob is equally qualified. He's done the same procedure. And Dr. Bill charges 10% more. So it's a $10,000 knee replacement, but he charges $11,000. Dr. Bob only gets $10,000. Standard rate in the area for a knee replacement. Bill, because he's been on TV, gets $11,000. Their procedure, the recovery, exactly the same. They went to Harvard. They're buddies. They even golf together, and they bet at the golf course. They're so competitive, but one gets more money. Why? Branding.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've got stories. I mean, give me an
Endless.
example. Give me one that just pops in your mind. You can talk about where that branding. This is a real story.
Real story, okay. Recently, well, as in last year, November, a client came to me. She wrote a book. Dawn Michelle was her name. She wrote a book called From Cell to CEO. Cell, C-E-L-L. She was a federal inmate for tax evasion. She comes out of the East Coast. She's very open about it. You can look her up. Dawn Michelle Chamberlain is her full name. She came to me, invested in going through my 2-day media experience, which was 4 television station interviews on live TV here in Las Vegas, interviewed on a live radio show that was broadcast throughout the world because it's internet radio. She then used and leveraged that media to garner the attention of the federal government, to credentialize herself and her book, because a book is an essential, easy way to get on TV if you're an author, albeit even one of your small books, Nina, that you put together, that's all part of the branding. Or larger books to independently published all the way to self-published with a major publisher. Those are great vehicles. She had a self-published book that she had paid somebody to help her write or wrote for her or with her, and it was a thin read, maybe 10,000 words. It was enough to credentialize her for the federal government to say, we got a lady who's been on TV, she's been on radio. We're going to give her a grant of $1 million to help recently released federal convicts get back in the workforce for entrepreneurial training. So she started this back in, I believe it's Delaware. She's from Delaware or Philadelphia, one of those. Yeah, I'm not sure the city, but she did that. And then she also landed a weekly gig on a radio show back in that market because she leveraged the media that she garnered in Las Vegas. The proof of concept, the proof that she could speak on camera, the proof that she was the irrefutable expert in her business sector.
Wow, and $1 million grant just because of understanding that branding kind of thing. I mean, she could have gone into a rabbit hole and, I was in jail, I was in the prison, instead she actually parlayed that. So
yes.
let's talk about, so it really starts, it sounds like what anybody that wants to set themselves apart, anybody that wants to be known as the person in whatever industry they're in, needs to start out with the book. I mean, you and I both agree to that. That's
100%. 100%.
Yeah,
it's a necessary arrow in the quiver.
And it's not hard. I mean, that's why I've been helping clients write books, for 15 years. And it's easy because I interview them. It's their concepts, their voice, everything. But and you're right, we do self-publish it because now you own all the royalties or you own all the rights. You don't have to, give any of that stuff away. But once they have the book, Mitch, walk me through. You're in Las Vegas. Tell me how that process would work to put them on national television.
Okay. Well, it's a national brand. I just want to clarify. It's a national brand broadcast throughout Nevada. So it's local news for the Las Vegas, and it also broadcasts up into Reno and Carson City, Nevada. So it does throughout the state of Nevada. But these are national brands as in ABC, NBC, CBS, the CW, and sometimes Fox is covered as well here in the Las Vegas market. So those are national brands that they can leverage. Now, why can I get people on TV? Because I know how to package people. I know how to shine them up. I pull out my trusty dusty rag, buff them. I may need some sandpaper to get off the rough edges, and then I use something very nice and buff them up, Nina, to where they speak clearly with sound bites, on point, briefly, when they're asked questions, and allow the host to dig deeper. Because these hosts are well-trained, they're media professionals. It's a whole different level when you've had deep media training than if it's just Joe Blow with his YouTube channel. He hung a shingle and says, hey, welcome to my channel. Tell me about you. Oh, great. That took a lot of intellect. Well, no, these are pros. You have to be positioned to be professionally interviewed. And it's a process because live TV is unforgiving. This is not recorded. Unforgiving. You have to be on point, prepared. All of your questions have to be practiced, rehearsed, on point. I said that a few times with intention. And with a book, as we both agree very strongly, you have your unique fingerprint, thumbprint. There's only one Nina Hershberger in the world. Even when you go, your daughter can't replicate you. She will never have your thumbprint. Your book is your thumbprint. Your second book is your thumbprint, expanded on your left hand. Then it grows from there if you create a series of books. But a book is the easiest way for me to position you on TV. It's because you're unique and you can talk about it.
So how long does that preparation take?
I do two phases to this. One, they watch videos. They got to watch. Then we get on a Zoom call. We review their questions that I explain we need to ask. So they're open-ended questions, not, hey, are you 6 feet tall? Yes. Oh, wonderful. Nobody cares about that. They're up. So tell me how questions, why questions, tell me more. So all of that is rehearsed over Zoom. We record it. So I'm the interviewer. I'm the host until you get down to doing exactly what you need to do when you're interviewed on live TV. And that also prepares people for I'm also a TV show host here on NBC television in Las Vegas, Channel 3. I have my own show that airs, and I do a 30-minute deep dive interview with clients who choose to go that route. It's obviously an upsell, and it's a deep dive, which can then be used for tremendous assets, distribution, and syndication at a later date.
Well, and so when you say that they're practicing and everything, do you give the actual hosts on the real live show, do you give them the questions, or do you not
100%.
know what they're going to? Okay.
100% prepared now. But I will caveat that. Sorry, I want to just finish. That's a great question. You have to be prepared for the unprepared, for the unexpected. So there are examples where the host might rephrase what you gave them. And that's why practice is so important, because the day of the interviews, we review it again. Practice meets perfection.
Well, it sounds like you must go with the person who's going to be interviewed. You go into the studio with them that day?
100%. Take them to the different studios, to the shows. I'm there prepared. I take photos of them while they're on set with one camera, and another camera is another video for B-roll footage. So it's a comprehensive branding experience all done in 2 days. All done
Wow.
in 2 days. Yes.
So
There's no waiting to go to podunk. You do it all in 2 days.
And the gal that you were just telling us a story about that was in the cell was in prison. So she had a book, and then she went through this process of the branding on the network. And so when she submitted for the grant money, I should back up. So you've talked about the B-roll, you talked about the video. So at the end, you give them what I would call a sizzle reel. I don't know if that's what you're calling it.
It's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So when she submitted for the grant money, she talked about her book, and she must have sent them to the sizzle reel. Do you know anything backstory about how that worked?
Yes, exactly. I do. Of course, she asked me to be part of it. It just wasn't my game, to help. That's her specialty. She wanted me to help with some aspects of it, but I was busy. I do what I do. What she did was she had heard about opportunities in our government with grants, and she looked into it. And how do you separate yourself from anybody else that's chasing that grant money? She's a published author, and she's also been on network television multiple times. And she's been on a radio show. She was on 2 radio shows here in Vegas. So she went from one studio to the next, all done in 2 days. And all the footage to back it up. So she was the expert, and that pushed her over the top compared to the other applicants. So that's why I went back to the example of the orthopedic surgeons that you brought up. Who went the extra mile? There's a plus of difference between the A student and the A plus student, the ones that take AP courses and the ones that just get by with a 4.0. My training pushes them to 4.5 grade point average. You are an outstanding student. You stand out irrefutably compared to the person. There's the average, there's the expected, and then there's the extraordinary. Have you written 1 book? Have you written 2 books? Are you a book author series writer? Again, another level. We spoke about Dan. Dan's written, 30, 40 books. Prolific. Who can argue that he isn't an expert? Simply, even if he was a dunce, which he's not, but if he were a dunce and he'd written all those books, who could say that the guy wasn't brilliant? He's written 30 books. This lady that went to the federal penitentiary, how can she not be an expert? She's written a book. Her face is on the cover of the book. She's been covered on 4 television networks and 2 radio shows. And she was on my show for 30 minutes. Who can argue that this lady isn't anything but the number 1 person in her category? So when they granted that money, she was on the top of the pile.
So, Mitch, do you think this is a one and done, or do you recommend that your authors do this every number of years?
I would recommend, if I were to prescribe the path forward, people ask me, like I have clients that have been on television here, and they say, I want to do television in my hometown now. I say, great. You've cut your teeth here. You're branded. If you can get a spot, say I have a client in Tampa. She is on a weekly show called Bloom TV in Tampa, which is part of the CBS network there in Tampa, Florida, every week. She's a chiropractor, but she's the medical expert, talking about diet, nutrition, functional medicine, all of this, and she's a chiropractor. But she's on TV every week. Who wouldn't want to be the guest expert on a live TV show every single week? Well, she had to start somewhere, didn't she? It's a great springboard to more media. And more media. I would never say no to an interview.
So the point is, she probably got it because they watched her, how she performed in Las Vegas on those 4 shows.
Correct.
And they said, okay, yeah. Otherwise, they're an unknown, and you wouldn't know. I mean, would it be a bad interview? Would it be whatever? So, yeah.
Well,
that's awesome.
Yeah, because the ideal, I mean, I think we will both agree New York is the number one media market in the world. If you can get on Good Morning America or one of those talk shows in New York, you're done. There isn't any higher. You've reached Mount Everest. You've reached the top. If you get on a show in New York, can you imagine having a weekly expert being on a New York show? Or if you're on CNN out of Atlanta every week being covered? Wow. But they're not going to put somebody with no exposure, no experience, no guarantee of not flopping. That's like when hell freezes over. It will never happen unless you can prove that you are worthy. I make people worthy.
Okay, so let's bring it all back around. Let's bring it back to that orthopedic surgeon, because let's say he doesn't or she doesn't want or take the time to be on your local television all the time. But they do want to use those assets so that when somebody is looking for which surgeon to use, they become the choice. So
100%.
That's primarily what most of these people are doing with the assets you're helping them create. Is that true?
Correct. 100%. Yeah, they'll never be on TV unless they go out and make themselves available. Some do, and some like the experience, but it's enough for most people, the investment. It's already proof.
So what do they do with that? Do they just put a link on their website? Tell me what they do with it afterwards.
All right, so let's say they have that line of media, Nina. It shows ABC, NBC, CBS, the CW, the Fox. All of those logos are there, and you have a little flashing light, as an example, or flashing arrow, which we see on websites. Click here, or go here, see the footage. They click on it, the logo, and boom, it defaults to their interview of live TV. That's a completely different level than being covered on CBS's blog, which is a press release. You've seen that fake logo distribution. Those are fake, phony, false, not real. That's not real television. That's not real interviews. That's where somebody makes a comment on a blog post. Oh, I was covered on CBS. No, you weren't, dum-dum. That's called stretching the line, and it's just false. It frustrates me when people don't stay honorable and in integrity. And
so that's the primary way they use it. They put that sizzle reel, a link to that sizzle reel, with an arrow. What about in their signature, email signature? What about on the front cover of their book?
All of that.
Here's what I like to do with my clients in their books. I like to put QR codes that, send them someplace. So you could put a QR code in their book that says,
100%.
watch me being interviewed, in Las Vegas on 4 television shows.
Yeah. Here's my legitimate coverage. And what I would do, the QR code is great, a great idea to be the direct route, but I would also take screenshots of each of those interviews and couple it with the QR code. And one QR code could take them to all 4, or you could have a separate QR code for each interview, whichever.
Yes.
And I would use the logo of the show right there.
Yes, 100%. Yes, I should have said that, but yes, 100% pictures and stuff. Well, Mitch, I'm looking at the time. I know you are actually booked back-to-back on podcasts today on 4th of July. So I don't want to take any more of your time, but I guarantee you there's going to be some people that will have been listening to this podcast will say, I need to talk to that guy. So how would you like them to reach out? What do you want people to know about the next step?
Well, I will share my very appropriate URL, getinterviewedguaranteed.com/meet with Mitch. And let's have a chat, 15, 30 minutes, whatever it is. The worst thing is you've met a new friend. I can help you with your media roadmap and to see if this makes sense for you to invest in or not. We'll certainly have a chat. This is offered for your people. getinterviewedguaranteed.com/meet with Mitch, MITCH. That's where they can find me, set up a call, and we'll chat.
Sounds Terrific. So, Mitch, thank you so much for spending the time with me on your holiday in July. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, and God bless America on this day.
Yeah. Until next time, this is Nina Hershberger saying, go out and make it a great day.
Thank you for listening to Megabucks Radio with Nina Hershberger. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or to listen to past episodes, visit megabucksradio.com.